The second I drove into my driveway, and there was this stranger gesturing to me like I was the one who was trespassing, I knew something was seriously wrong. He was leaning against a rusted van, a duffel bag thrown over his shoulder, and a folding chair in his hand, beating like he'd just checked into a resort. "Yo, you got the Wi-Fi password?" he yelled, as if my residence was a public hotspot. I stood there dumbfounded, sizing up a trashed Chevy Camaro parked alongside him, blasting music with its trunk open, revealing what appeared to be car pieces. I got out of my pickup truck wearing my uniform pants from the previous night's operation, having my shirt over my arm, and remarked, "Excuse me, but what the hell are you doing in my driveway?" His answer was like a slap. "The HOA told, this spot's mine for the week I paid for it on Zelle." That was when I knew someone had initiated a game they weren't ready to lose, and that person was Susan, the self-proclaimed empress of our HOA, who didn't have a clue she just made my driveway a hub for a criminal enterprise right under the county sheriff's nose. I'd only been home 5 minutes when my wife Laura stormed out, face flushed with anger. She'd called me 3 times on my drive back from the field, but I couldn't answer while debriefing. She pointed a finger at the 2 strangers relaxing in our front yard like they were sharing an Airbnb. One was typing on a laptop perched on our trash can. The other had inserted a charger in our outdoor outlet, siphoning our electricity. I strode over phone recording and demanded an explanation. Susan set it up, the laptop guy said nonchalantly. "It's a community space she's renting to pay for the HOA, refers to it as the Driveway Equity Program." Cool, huh? I was gasping in disbelief. I looked at my garage cameras and discovered that they'd come at 6 a.m. One had even tried our front door without knowing we were home. This was not merely audacity. It was criminal trespassing. Worse, one of these tenants was on our county watch list for selling illegal auto parts. What Susan did not know, what no one in this quiet cul-de-sac knew, was that Matt, wasn't only the guy who trimmed his lawn with precision. I was the county sheriff, recently redeployed to a less active district and still operating covert operations. I kept my position discreet to prevent minor neighbor disagreements or HOA drama, but Susan had brought me into her delusional empire of phony leases and forged bylaws selling access to my property to strangers attached to actual crimes. Prior to confronting her, I required evidence inside. I lit up my encrypted laptop and ran the plates on their vehicles. One was clean, the other had a suspended registration tied to a chop shop bust in the adjacent county. I called a task force buddy, cross-checked the Zelle receipt the renter had flashed, and received confirmation. This guy was involved with an ongoing catalytic converter theft ring. Susan wasn't scamming. She was harboring felons under her HOA's banner. I poured coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and let out a dark laugh. Laura, still seething, asked, "What was so funny?" "Nothing," I said. "Just realized I've got probable cause to search my own driveway." I wanted to hear Susan's excuse before coming down hard. I grabbed my badge off the sock drawer and went to the HOA clubhouse, a glorified shed painted beige. Susan stood out front like she was guarding Fort Knox sunglasses low on her nose. "Can I help you?" she sneered. "We're in a board meeting," I explained patiently the men in my driveway. Her expression did not change. "Yes, I made arrangements. They signed the community parking lease. You were not occupying the space, and we required funds to upgrade the pool. It's in the bylaws." She waved a pile of crumpled papers and signed and unstamped, "You rented my driveway for cash?" I reiterated, "It's not yours alone." She said triumphantly, "Under HOA policy 17B, underutilized spaces may reassigned." I suppressed a laugh and nodded. "All right, send me the list of leased driveways, payment records, and that policy." Her smile faltered. "It's not digitized yet, I'll call you back." She wouldn't back home, I complained through the sheriff's office, keeping it in-house to prevent tipping her off. This was no longer about reclaiming my driveway. Susan was operating a scam, leasing properties, accepting untraceable cash, and covering behind spurious policies. If I played it right, she'd be charged with fraud impersonation and aiding illegal commerce. That evening, the renters departed, most likely frightened by a patrol car. I'd invited a friend to park nearby. I sat at the window already thinking ahead to my next step. Susan had no concept she'd singled out the one neighbor who possessed the legal clout to take her down. The following morning, silence was a coiled snake. No revving engines, no strangers hanging around, just a creepy stillness that screamed Susan was plotting her comeback. I decided to treat this like any operation, dismantle her scam systematically. I dressed casually and attended the HOA board meeting. It was less a meeting and more Susan's one-woman show, flanked by two half-asleep board members and another munching donuts. She was mid-spech about progress when I arrived, boasting that her driveway equity program had raised $1,400 in 2 weeks. Murmurs of approval filled the room. I raised my hand. She snubbed me. I brought it up again with a firm smile. She nodded. I got up and asked who signed off the program, where the signed resolution was, and whose owners can forward it. Her smile froze. As acting president, I started it under emergency discretion. She stuttered, pointing to a paper stack. It's grandfathered in. I took it all down, phone stuffed in my pocket. A board member later whispered, I didn't vote for this. I thought it was a garage sale. Her lies were crumbling. That afternoon, I installed discrete cameras around my property, covering the driveway mailbox and HOA shed path. Reviewing past footage was chilling. Strangers charging phones in my outlet, sleeping by my porch, even washing car parts with my hose. One vehicle had mismatched plates flagged in a hidden run. This wasn't just HOA overreach, it was a cash for access racket with criminal ties. I compiled a report, photographs, plate, corresponds, timestamps, and sound, and sent it to the sheriff's investigations unit, marking it as felony facilitation. An expert verified the Zell renter was a middleman in the converter ring. My driveway was a drop location. I provided Susan rope to hang herself. I pulled my truck in to shut down the driveway, and within hours, she knocked clipboard. Investigations unit marking it as felony facilitation. An expert verified the Zell renter was a middleman in the converter ring. My driveway was a drop location. I provided Susan rope to hang herself. I pulled my truck in to shut down the driveway, and within hours she knocked clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched like a soap opera villain. You're blocking a leased spot, she chirped. I asked who the guest was. She hesitated, then named a known associate of the theft ring. I refused to move. Her lips tightened. Then I'll issue a citation, she said, handing me a homemade slip with a Canva HOA header. I smiled. Every document helps. That night, my partner confirmed a sting operation using my property as a live feed. I agreed, turning my home into a trap for Susan's renters. Susan escalated, slapping me with 3 ridiculous HOA infractions: vehicle hoarding for parking my patrol, SUV visual disruption for a toddler gate, and noise pollution from a silent generator. She was frantic, throwing darts blindly. Meanwhile, flyers popped up on neighbors' doors touting her revenue plan and a community barbecue to celebrate. I RSVP to see her sweat. A neighbor, Carlos, showed me a picture of a car from my driveway that clipped his mailbox and parked behind his garage. Its plates related to the investigation. Another clip featured a child on a scooter passing cash to a renter who removed a catalytic converter from his trunk. They were making my driveway a revolving exchange point. I sent the video to the task force. They're moving fast. Set the clock. The last straw was when I discovered my driveway blocked by orange cones and a laminated sign. Reserved HOA parking violators. Find the HOA header was taped on. 20 minutes later, a dented truck arrived with a couple claiming a lease. The woman had a text from Susan HOA verifying the deal. I stalled them, speaking casually, while the task force intervened. An unmarked van pulled up, and plainclothes officers interviewed the couple. Their truck was stolen, its bed concealing metal parts. They were held back, all because Susan couldn't keep her nose out of things. Word got around. 2 board members quit one, sending me emails confirming Susan faked votes and employed dummy accounts to impersonate them. She'd boasted I was clueless and too afraid to confront her. I saved it all. Susan doubled down, sharing a Facebook Live in the HOA group, asserting she was a victim of extremist neighbors and illegal surveillance. She called it a political hit job against strong women. I watched, shaking my head. This wasn't strength. It was delusion. The sting was set for 4 a.m. when the neighborhood slept. Surveillance vans parked unseen, cruisers lingered in the vicinity, and my home supplied live information to the task force. Susan's bogus leases, cash transfers, and criminal tenants were chronicled in a file heavy enough to thud. At 3:56 a.m., a silver truck rolled in. The driver, a known suspect, lifted a tarp exposing converter parts. I whispered into my earpiece and the task force mobilized. Officers cordoned the street, detained the suspect in my yard. An AK-9 unit pinned him down. I walked out in uniform, nodding to the lead officer. The suspect, cuffed in the grass, gasped, "You live here?" I nodded. "Yeah, and I'm the sheriff." Porch lights came on. Susan appeared in a purple robe, filming and yelling, "You can't raid without HOA approval." I flashed my badge. "Susan, I'm authorizing it. You rented my property to felons." Her face paled. "You never said you were a sheriff," she whispered. "You never asked." I responded, "But you sold something that wasn't yours." Officers held her in custody for questioning, reading her rights as she flailed. "This is harassment," she yelled. Neighbors gawked as the woman who found garbage cans was handcuffed and taken away. She spat at me. "You set me up," I stepped in. "No, Susan, you set yourself up when you rented a sheriff's driveway." Dawn broke with shocked silence. Neighbors came with muffins, apologies, and tales of Susan's despotism. Dangers of towing a wheelchair van. Fines for children, chalk artwork. The news burst out. Rogue HOA leader busted by sheriff, neighbor, and journalists converged. Susan's mug shot broadcast between weather reports, igniting debates over HOA abuse and criminal negligence. Some labeled her a misguided visionary, others a power-hungry fraud. I went back to work writing reports and testifying. But the real triumph was my driveway. I painted a sheriff's badge mural where Susan's sign used to be, installing a plaque, "Private Property." No Ever Leases neighbors took pictures in jest about Susan-free estates. The HOA failed residents dissolved it, organizing a volunteer council with fines, nothing but lemonade, and open forums. I had a fundraiser on my driveway for a program of youth law enforcement. Susan had ridiculed selling a parking pass with her mock citation, a past board member one holding it aloft like a trophy. My driveway became a landmark, empty, quiet hours. Laura put out flowers. Our son drew chalk masterpieces fearlessly. Months afterward, at a restaurant valet stand, I spotted Susan, now a valet, holding our keys with an expression of dread. I grabbed them silently, smiled, and drove away. She'd progressed from leasing driveways to parking automobiles. Full circle, life continued on, but the lesson stuck. Never let ego write checks your clipboard can't cash.